I want to publicly acknowledge Louisa Taylor from Canterbury Tech to share the love to, 4,000 or 4,500 people. And one of them was Rob. And she just said, oh, this is cool. And no one is talking about augmented reality. Okay, point taken. So welcome. It's simple as that. If you raise your hand and you have something what is related to the community, you are more than welcome to be here. And I would invite you to start, introduce yourself, and I think that we are on time. So please.
Well, thanks everybody for coming back from lunch. As you know, we've heard a lot about Amdahl's law and a couple other laws, and of course, Cole's law is the most important law, which is hacked cabbage with mayonnaise. Tēnā koto katoa e te mana whenua tēnā koto. Ko Catoctin te maunga, ko Potomac te awa, ko Judea te iwi, no America o. He tohunga au I te ropu hangarau tangata hangarau, I te whare wānanga o Waitaha. Ko Rob Lindeman, taku ingoa. Mā reira, tēnā koto, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora, everybody. That's a Māori introduction. So I was saying last night, I'm American by birth, with Kiwi by choice. The thing I really like about the Māori introduction is that your name comes last, and your position comes last. And it really is there to establish connections. So I really feel like a fish out of water in this group. I'm a computer scientist, but on the graphics side of things. What I said was my river is the Potomac. My mountain is the Catoctin Mountains in southern Pennsylvania. And my tribe is Judea, so I'm Jewish. And I come from America. And the idea of these introductions is to establish connections. Maori can always find connections between any two people. And then I'm from University of Canterbury, from the Human Interface Technology Lab. So kia ora and welcome. The other thing is I didn't notice this until one of the presenters did the same thing. So I'm supposed to present something that you don't know about me, but none of you know me anyway. So one thing is I really wanted to be an astronaut. So I applied to being American. We have the luxury of being able to apply to NASA. So I applied for 10 years to NASA. And Teresa Gomez, for those of you who have applied to be astronauts, she's the one that everybody always has to interact with to get to Johnson Space Station. She's at Johnson. And this is an email that I just dug up from 1998 of her sending me the application. So for 10 years, I applied to be an astronaut, which unfortunately didn't work out. However, when I moved to New Zealand, I found that Christchurch is a gateway city to this magical place, which is Antarctica. So this is me in 2018, this Mount Erebus in the background. And for a lot of people that go to Antarctica, they actually wanted to be astronauts as well. So it's actually harder to get rescued from Antarctica than from the space station, just to give you some insight. And it was a totally life-changing experience and a humbling experience to go there. I ended up going twice, camping in a tent on an ice shelf in Antarctica. Rob never thought he would be doing that. But anyway, so that's a little bit about me. And again, hopefully making a connection somewhere. So I'm going to talk briefly about the lab that I work at. As many things in New Zealand, this is probably one of the top 3 virtual reality labs in the world. Little known in New Zealand, but really well known in the research community outside of New Zealand. And I first came here on sabbatical as a visitor in 2011. And then I got a very nice email when Mark Billinghurst, the then director, moved on. I got a very nice email asking me to apply for the position. And I asked my wife, and she said yes. So we moved here in 2016. And the lab was originally started by Tom Furness and Mark, who was from the University of Washington, who started the original HIT lab. And he had a Kiwi PhD student, Mark Billinghurst, who's a legend in the field. A good friend of mine, and we still collaborate a lot. Anyway, so I came here to work with him originally, so I've been in this role since 2016. We're we've grown. Actually, we're the largest we've been. We have 5 continuing academic staff. We have a games programmer, makes everything look great. A game artist makes everything look great. And a really great team. The interesting thing is we are the human interface technology lab. So a lot of the discussion that I've seen so far is all about the technology and use cases and things. It's definitely important, making a difference and problems and things like that. We really flip things around. So we're not a technology organization that's going to solve your problem with technology. We're an organization that's going to look at your problem and then pull in the right technology. So we don't really have anything in mind other than we're going to use technology somehow. And so we start with the person, look at the tasks, the environment, and then kind of pull things in. Our main research areas are in these 5 areas. And just a quick primer. So VR basically replaces the real world with virtual content and is used for many different interaction applications. Augmented reality combines the real world and the virtual world somehow. So we have this virtual content. It doesn't necessarily overlay it, but it mixes it in some interesting way. So this is a master's student who is using everyday objects as handheld props for things in games. So you want a shield, you pick up a frying pan and you can wield it like a shield. Or if you want, you can use a spray gun for a crossbow. So the idea is how do we bring these objects into an augmented reality? And we've done a lot more recently on combining the motivation that games provide, because games are motivating, with the visceral nature of immersive technologies for X, where X is not Twitter. X is healthcare or training or whatever it is you're trying to do. So combining these two things together to get people to have more time on task in a first-person case. We've had some relatively big successes lately. So we got a very nice grant from the New Zealand government to bring these 2 academics to New Zealand from Europe. The Digital Screen Campus is a big, big effort on campus now to reinvigorate filmmaking in the South Island in New Zealand. Again, huge, huge investment. And the lab itself, we have a lot of kit, a lot of equipment that allows us to do what we want to do. So we're very applied that organizations come to us with their problems and we help them solve them. So the fire service or the Olympic team will come to us and ask us, we need to do this thing cheaper or more efficiently. Can you help us? And so we have a lot of technology to help us. And I'll show this is actually Tom. We have a 360-degree ball that you sit inside, and it's a virtual reality system. This is a Star Wars-like game where you're in a gun turret and you have to shoot meteors as they're falling to Earth. And Tom, who has no problem with cyber sickness or anything, just had a great time in here. And you see it's really responsive. This is a Kiwi company who built this device. They're in Wellington, called 8360, and they're now going worldwide. Just a crazy, crazy device that, again, it's kind of number 8 wire-ish in that case. We also do a lot of multi-sensory work. So we combine visuals and audio, but also smell, a lot of touch, and a lot of vibration feedback. We've done some virtual eating as well. So you give somebody a fried piece of tofu and you let them smell potatoes and they think they're eating chips, which is good. It's kind of a healthy alternative. So we've really done semi-healthy, I don't know. We've done a lot of things across the board, and I'm not going to talk about each of these, but these are kind of the types of projects that we've had impact on over the last wee while. Just a huge, huge, huge field. And something that I think may be of interest here is looking at things like immersive analytics, which is, okay, great, you have all this data, how are you going to make sense of it? And so that's a kind of a newish area that we're looking at. This is a video that we did as an example. Everything we do is co-design. So this is the New Zealand Olympic team, and they came to us with the problem of this drop in performance of an athlete who's in the warm-up tent and they're all ready to go. When they do the walk from the warm-up tent to wherever it is they're going to drop in for skiing, or the figure skaters, when they go from the warm-up area to there's a huge drop in performance just from the stress of that walk. And so they asked us to build them a system where they could change the time of day, and they could change the weather conditions, and they could change the number of paparazzi. They could change all of these variables very, very easily and just have their athletes go through this again and again and again and again. And we put physiological measures on them. We ran them through all this stuff, collected a bunch of data. The really, really, really pro athletes showed no influence at all physiologically on this walk. And the junior athletes was like, boom, So you see these huge spikes because of the stress. And so the coaches built this into the system. And after they used it several times, the physiology changed. So it's a direct impact. And they won a bunch of golds in Beijing. So we didn't win them, they did. We also did some stuff with virtual babies. So this is an AI-controlled baby that reacts to you depending on how you hold it. This is for early caregivers to practice holding babies in the right way. So it's not for moms, but the people who teach moms how to be good moms in terms of holding babies and things, and the baby will react a certain way. I turned the sound off because the baby is just wailing at this point. Again, these are kind of the applied things that we do. And the goal is we want people to be able to stay in. And of course, because we have this generation of students, somebody wanted to build a broomstick simulator. So we have a Nimbus 2020, and you can fly through a mystical wizard type area with dragons and a flying car and things like that. But there is science here where we're studying cyber sickness. So a lot of these produce cyber sickness. So that's the lab. What I am currently researching is comfortable VR. So the idea is all of this technology now has been around. So I played Doom on this headset in 1995 for 6 hours straight. So I had this headset on, I had a patch for DOS, and I was playing this game. And I took the headset off and I was bawling. The tears were streaming down my face. And it's because I had realized I didn't blink for like 6 hours because it was so immersive. So that's when I knew what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And so all these headsets look a lot like what we have today. So the question is, the next generation came out. So this is 2015 was when kind of the big release came. So this was the first one. And then the rest of these maybe you know about, but they've been rolled out. You notice the price is about the same, except Sony units always seem to be more expensive. But everybody else is around kind of the $600-800 time thing. The resolution increases a little bit and performance goes up a little bit. Now, these are much higher end. So this one is really, really expensive, but it's really, really nice. The Meta Quest Pro, also expensive. The Quest 3, which is their latest device, and then Apple's device. And you see kind of the prices, the resolution. And the interesting thing that's happening is these are now consumer, well, not these, but the previous ones are consumer grade, and you can buy them, and they really don't cost you a lot. So great. So the question is, why hasn't VR really taken off? So I've been a VR researcher since 1992. Which is crazy. People, it's so new. I've seen wave and wave and wave of VR come and go. This is definitely the biggest wave. And my question is, I really want this thing to work, but you guys are not all wearing your VR headsets every day and doing things at home or at work or whatever. And the question is why? And my answer is, some people say, oh, there's no real killer app. And I would say, well, games are actually the killer app. If you've ever played Beat Saber or The Climb or anything like that, you can see how addicting these are. Costs are pretty affordable. Content creation, we now have really good tools. Everything is mature. We have delivery systems. It really comes down, in my opinion, to this idea of discomfort. So we started to look at this in a scientific way to figure out, what are we trying to do? So we're hoping that people can meet comfortably, get real work done, play games for long periods of time, and we want to support being expressive without getting tired. And so we thought about discomfort on three vectors. So one is about fatigue, which is things that get you tired. Cyber sickness, which is feeling unwell from the movement, the lack of connection between the physiological signals you're getting and what's happening visually. And then worry, which is an interesting term, and like worried about bumping into things or worry about how you look. And so we've kind of gone deep and looked at these in an approach that is going to go through 4 stages. So we're submitting a big grant proposal around this right now, is to identify and understand the sources of discomfort, measure them, predict them in people, and then find mitigation strategies. And so put all these together in a way that allows people to stay in VR for long periods of time. I'm actually not going to go too deeply into these because I want to get to the stuff that I think you might care a lot about. Is this okay? So this is the way I get reaction from my audience. Is this okay, or is this like, wow, I just get past this stuff? Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah. This I'm Kiwi. So if we think about where things have come from, you can this is kind of like, yeah, of course, well, my neck is going to get tired. So if you look at the Apple headset, everybody's like, isn't this problem solved now because Apple's coming out with their device? It's all on the front of your head. And I don't know how Apple could decide to build this thing where everything is on the front of your head. It's actually pretty heavy. And there are lots of cases where you know that balancing these things by putting, let's say, the battery on the back, even though it's more weight, ends up being better from an ergonomics point of view because the weight is really balanced. Google Glass did this. Did anybody use Google Glass before? So Google Glass, they had the battery on the other side of your ear, and that was a really strategic move because it really took the weight off of the bridge of your nose. So this de-goggle approach is not used by everybody. PlayStation, for example, you wear a headband and everything hangs from the headband, and that is much better, turns out, for people. So it's interesting to see even the latest technology, they've made some decisions that are kind of So they don't sell them in New Zealand yet, but we're hoping to get one soon. So we can think about these things, and prediction is very interesting. So some people get motion sick, they'll probably get cyber sick. So you can say, if this person has a tendency towards motion sickness, if this person had a lot to drink last night. So there's some questions you can ask to figure out and predict. If this application has a lot of visual motion, somebody's going to get sick. So you can think about how to classify both the person, but also the application and the systems, latencies and things like that, and to figure out kind of prediction. Then mitigation is kind of the one I really, really am excited about because we've done a lot of work on figuring out how to kind of fix these things. So this is a short URL, kind of short, GoGoUCNZ you can go to, and this will show up. And my slides on the deck are much thicker than these. So if you want to see more, there's more there. I was asked by Nicholas to actually make them shorter. So one of the things that people do in VR is they move around a lot. And so how do we make it so that you don't always have to be doing this all the time? And one of them, my PhD student, came up with this idea called trigger walking. So you hold the controllers down here and you just pull the triggers, and each trigger pull is a step. And I can hold my hands here forever. I can't hold my hands here forever, but this I can do. So, and she came up, she did a whole bunch of user studies comparing the efficiency and whether people like it or not. And that's her there. So there's lots of things that we can do. We can explore to try and make the tasks that we do in VR better. I had another student, and he was looking at eye strain. So the idea is, if you have eye strain, you can do this in the real world, this exercise called the thumb exercise, where you focus on your thumb, you go like this, and it relaxes or the muscles in your eyes. Or you can do a figure 8 with your eyes, and that kind of does things in well. So his idea was, can we do this in VR so that people can, instead of just taking a break when you're tired, take an active break? So we have you do stuff while you're taking a break. The short answer is the thumb didn't work very well, but the figure 8 worked really well. So spoiler. And then for cyber sickness, we've done a whole bunch of stuff. Worry is, again, less studied, but some really interesting things about people bumping into things. The pass-through systems on a lot of these units are actually really good for helping with that. But they break the presence also a bit, so it's kind of a balance. And then we can, all of these units now collect a whole bunch of physiological data. So they're collecting eye gaze, and they're collecting, even some collect heart rate. And again, as I mentioned, prediction around maybe we can give people kind of their personality profile, the Big 5 personality test, to say this is an introverted person, this is an extroverted person. And maybe we can predict anxiety. If you have anxiety in the real world, maybe you have anxiety in VR, kind of thing. And then another thing is to think about familiarity. So we like consistency. We like to be able to transfer skills from the real world to bring them into the virtual world and somehow be able to have some consistency from the real world. And so one is maybe your avatar, your representation in VR should look like you. And so there's less of a surprise. If you see somebody else who you normally see in the real world, if it looks like them, you recognize them, it's going to reduce the surprise that you have. And then a lot of interaction right now is point and click, point and click. There's no voice being used right now. Why can't I say, put that there? You can't do that right now in VR, where I might do something similar where I point to something and maybe it's going to select it. Oh, select that teapot, and then it will be selected, as opposed to me having to hold my arm in the air. Oh, I missed it. Hold on, let me re-click that thing. So all these things that I have to do right now can be really, really tiring. And then the other thing, this is actually from I do a lot of work with Maldi researchers, and they have this, we came up with this really great saying. So Temura came up with this, haere pai atu, hoki pai mai. So the idea here is go well, come back well. So how can we transition into VR comfortably? And then when we come out, we feel comfortable as well. And so to think about preparing, we call this the wow effect. So we do a lot of demos. People come into the lab, put a headset on, they're like, "Wow, this is amazing," and then they poke around stuff. And 5 minutes later, like, "So now what can I do?" So after that wow effect wears off, people are like, "Oh man, this is really hot. It's kind of tiring. I don't really want to use this. And I could do this so much better on the desktop." So once this wow effect wears off, we all love VR for the first 5 minutes, but once it wears off, how can we actually allow people to get real work done? Sometimes I have to switch between the real and the virtual world, and that as a context switch, and I have to pay for that, just like you do in the OS. And then you might have to wear a lot of stuff. So the idea is how can we reduce all of these encumbrances? So one of the things that I came up with, and I patented this, the idea is you have a VR headset, and instead of having a plastic cowl around the side, we put LCD panels in there, and we can change them to be transparent or opaque just by applying a voltage. And so now when I want to take a sip of my cup, I can just push the button or say, open the windows, and now I can see my hands when I'm typing, or I can drink, or I can text. And so we came up and we did a whole bunch of studies. I had another PhD student who came up, and he did the same. He hacked the Vive controller, and so he was able to replace the cowl of the HTC Vive with these same panels. He also did something really cool. And I know you have a pointer, but that's okay, is he put eyes on the outside of the headset. So this seems really weird, but when someone in an office environment, when someone walks up to an immersed user, you got to take the headset off or there's no communication. And so he actually put eyes here. So now the non-immersed user has some indication of where the person's looking, what they're doing, and maybe what they're doing. And this was really quick and dirty, but even this just really simple thing that he hacked up with an Arduino made a huge difference on using these in office environments where there's a combination of immersed and non-immersed users. So this made the non-immersed users feel actually more comfortable. Okay, so I have a couple guidelines that I want to list off. Am I doing okay? He's not happy. And there are some really easy things. One is, if you're going to use VR for a long period of time, just don't require people to stand up. Just put them in a swivel chair, not a fixed chair like these, but a swivel chair. You'll find that they're much more comfortable and they can stay seated for a very long period of time, and they can work things out. No-look interfaces are good. So I have this bag. I've been wearing it, not this particular day. I've been wearing this for about 10 years, and it's nice. I can grab stuff from it. I can put stuff away. I'm old, so it has my glasses in it, So I don't have to look down when I actually interact with this thing because I know where it is and it's always in the same place. So these no-look interfaces allow me to focus on what I'm doing, and then bursty interaction. So you don't want people to have to have their arms in the air for a sustained period of time. So if they grab something, they move it. Oh no, that's not. I want to rotate it a little bit. Like, this is the last thing you want someone to do. The best thing is if you say that object, and then you have them rotate, let's say, on a touchpad that they have on their leg. So this is a bursty interaction. I do this, and then I manipulate it somewhere that I'm more comfortable, on the desktop or something like that. Yeah. Those. Yeah. Training. So a learning curve is not a bad thing if you're going to be using a system for a long period of time. So it's okay if something is not, quote, intuitive, which HCI people hate, but if it requires you to get up to speed by learning it, all the tools that we use that have any impact on our lives actually have a learning curve. And it's okay if your system has a learning curve, as long as they're going to be using it. The investment is okay. So so that's a really important point. So I want to talk my last slide is about an interesting topic that's come up that probably is of interest to you. And I have a PhD student, and she's extremely excited about this topic. So she's done some amazing work, and it's about privacy in VR. So not security, but privacy. So if you think about when you're on your browser, when you browse somewhere, guess what? A whole bunch of data is being collected about you whenever you're using your computer. And so you have to go and clear your cache and change your passwords and everything else. In VR, there is like a whole bunch of high-frequency data that's being collected. So all of your eye movements, your hand movements, because they're using it, so your avatar is good, right? So your avatar is expressive. There's physiological data being captured. And again, it's really good because if we're communicating in VR and you're in Chicago and I'm here and we're both in VR, I want to be able to have a very substantial conversation or decision-making or design meeting with you. So it's really great. The problem is, and there are some really nice tools. So if you're looking for things, so Ready Player Me, really nice name, is a third-party avatar system that allows you to make an avatar in a whole bunch of different ways. And application providers are now including support for Ready Player Me. So you make your avatar once, and it's the same in every application that you use, cross-platform, which is really nice. And again, New Zealand punching above its weight, Soul Machines is a company in Auckland that make the most unbelievably realistic avatars, AI-driven agents, just incredible stuff. So these two things are points if you want to go look at something. But if you think about all this data, lots of personalized data, can you think of somebody who might want to use this data? So the problem here is that all this data is being collected, and there's no way for you to change your password or to flush your cache or anything like that, because this is you. So all this data is being collected. If I go into VR and I do something and I've logged in, if I do something else on another system where I haven't logged in, they'll know it's me. From very, very subtle movements, all this data at very, very high frequency being collected. So the question is, what do we do? What do we do in this case? So we need to balance this idea of expressiveness with privacy. So I want to be expressive, but how can I do that in a way that really saves my privacy, really ensures that I'm going to be anonymous to some systems? And so she's got some really, really great ideas around filters that you can implement as a black box that allows you to still be expressive. So if it notices that you're happy, it doesn't send your happy data, it sends a canonical happy data. So your avatar will smile in the right way. So it will use kind of ways of representing your happiness that aren't you, but are still happy. So it's kind of, that's one of the filters that she's looking at. So, but this notion of privacy in VR, again, is something I think I'd be happy to chat more about. This is a really, really, really important topic in my field. So I'll end with just saying if anybody wants to engage with us, we have master scholarships, PhD scholarships. We take interns. We do a lot of exchanges. Like people come for sabbaticals here. There's lots of corporate sponsorship that we can bring in. We do lots of consultancy. If you need help with any projects or things, you can just buy our time. And that's really what I have. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks for having me here. And I really hope that this was okay, because I feel like a fish out of water.